All right. How are you doing?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Yeah, welcome to the show. We have Emmy Award winning actor Jeff Kober joining me here for Sports and Hip Hop with DJ Mad Max, Mad Max Radio, Live 365, iHeartRadio. It's an honor to have you here. The Walking Dead, General Hospital, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, First Power, Sons of Anarchy, Law and Order SVU. I mean, you've been on pretty much every show. It's an honor to have you here. And you also teach meditation, which we'll get into tonight. But welcome to the show, man. How's everything going?
Oh, thanks so much. Everything's going pretty good. Yeah, it's a good life. I have a
Yeah,
good life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
How's 2025 treating you so far?
Well, you know what? I shot 5 episodes of General Hospital on January 15th and left for India on January 16th and stayed there for a month and I'm back and reorganizing and just letting things fall into place and doing a lot of writing and a lot of meditating and a lot of teaching and yeah, just it's a full life.
Yeah, I'll say so. How's it now not going to be a part of the show because now you're leaving as Cyrus and people are up in arms or upset that you're gone. So
Well, that's
how does
good.
yeah, how does it? What are you gonna miss most playing about Cyrus? It was such a huge hit for the show.
Oh, I miss the people. There's a lot of good people to hang out with there. The cast and the crew and the directors and the producers. Everyone is just they couldn't be better. And everyone's it's like it's in the trenches. You're working and everyone there is doing the best they can to make the best product they can make, and that's that's one of the most beautiful things about show business, acting to me is like you're working with people who really enjoy what they're doing and want to do it well. And then the work itself, uh, unlike most jobs, like I said, I shot 5 episodes. I did 45 pages of dialogue on one day. And on a nighttime show, you shoot like 10 pages in one day. They shoot 120 in one day. And it's one take, four cameras. And, as long as you don't uh, have a convulsion in the middle of the scene, they go like, yeah, we're good. We'll move on.
It, how did it feel to win that Emmy Award? Because I saw the announcement made when you won. How did it feel? Were you surprised?
Yeah, I mean, it was the high point of the night for me. Well, it's a gas. It's a real gas to go up there and win an Emmy. Um, but I was I was on the red carpet and I was starting to get nervous and then I just stopped and had a little chat with myself and said, If you win, is that going to change your life at all? No. If you lose, is that going to change your life at all? No. Okay, can you have fun? Yeah. And then I had fun. And then it was just like gravy to actually win.
Yeah, well deserved, and you've put in a lot of work, and you started really. I mean, you started for a while now, but your first acting class was at 26. So did you kind of believe in that really there ever being a late start to acting? Because I don't think 26 is too late.
Danny Aiello started when he was like
Mhm.
46. And he had a pretty good career.
Yeah.
Um, And, Van Gogh started painting when he was 26, and Norman MacLean wrote A River Runs Through It when he was 75. It takes what it takes for us to stumble through and find our place in the world. And I was a stumbler for for quite a while.
Yeah, being born in Montana, but in the carnival, the Getty Oil Company, going out to LA. Yeah, you definitely worked your way up the ladder to get on all these hit shows and have a memorable piece about each one. And even one specific was the Law and Order SVU episode as Abraham. That
Oh,
was probably
yeah.
one of the most disturbing, traumatizing episodes I've ever seen in my life. I remember it from seeing it years ago when I was younger. And your
Yeah.
performance in that, you played it as a man of God. Is there something, because we're going to get into First Power and other roles you played, but is there something that a process that you have to detach yourself from playing those dark roles because they are so on the dark side?
Well, it's something you learned. because no one really talks about that, you know. They and like the first Power, I didn't do that one smart, and you know, and it stuck with me for a while. But Law and Order SVU, I was just like you said, I was being a man of God, and I was just being of service. Let me help you out, and I tried. I had actually a group of friends came by to watch it, and I watched the first scene. And I had to leave the room because it was so creepy. When I was doing it, I was just with everyone else and just, shooting the shit and having fun, and it was like I wasn't being a creepy guy. But then you watch that in context and you go like, oh my God. It's the context that makes it creepy. It's not the performance. The performance has to be true and sincere and connected within and then connected to your acting partner.
Yeah. It definitely had a heavy impact there, and like I said, was disturbing and on the dark side. With First Power, because we might as well get into it, it was based on the Richard Ramirez Night Stalker role, and there were a lot of things in me doing my research on you just about the film that there were a lot of injuries on set that were going on. So what were kind of what was some of the reasoning and the things that went on behind this? Because this plays into the dark energy.
Well, Robert Resnikoff, who wrote it, had really delved deeply into, you know, uh, his research. He did some dark research, and I did too, because that's what I just wanted to. The only way I knew how to do a role was to just be in it as fully as possible and do it. And so I was there were witchcraft stores in LA back then, and I went to those, and I learned the Lord's Prayer backwards, and I don't recommend that to anyone. And I went to see Richard Ramirez was on trial, and I went to see him in the courtroom, and that was, oh man, that's all you really need is to see look in his eyes one time. You go like, okay, got it.
Wow. Because I did see that online that you went to his trial. I saw
Yeah.
the documentary on him that came out on Netflix, and that was disturbing. He's definitely, I know people, there's usually like some weird fascination with serial killers. People like watching that stuff. But I think out of the ones that you see that are on these Netflix documentaries, he's definitely the creepiest. I don't know if it's the fact that people were vulnerable and he was killing people in their sleep. There's just something deeply disturbing about him the most, and just the way he looks.
Well, the way he looks and the way you know, on the one hand, you've got to have compassion for this guy because his father, when he was 5 years old, used to tie him up to a cross in a cemetery across the road from where they lived, and his brother-in-law taught him how to creep around and be a peeping Tom, and and taught him just everything that you don't want to know as a human. And he was teaching it to this vulnerable kid, and then what was really creepy about him was he the way it made sense to me, and I don't know what they say, what psychiatrists would say or psychologists would say, but to me it was like he got to be God for when he broke into someone's home till he left. He was God, and he had the power of life and death, and he got to make these people do whatever he wanted them to do and see them suffer and see them as power. We see it in our world today is that a lot of people are just going for power. It's when love is off the table and compassion is no longer seen as having any value, then power is what you have left.
Yeah, and people abuse it constantly.
Well, if that's the only thing you're going for, abuse is by definition what's going to happen. It may not always look like abuse, and you may not do it in order to uh, feed off of the abuse, but it's going to be abusive because power is not what life is about.
Mhm.
Power is what survival is about, but not life.
No, with going to his trial, was this for research behind the role when doing the
Yeah,
first
yeah. I
hours
just
of
wanted to
research?
see this cat, and you could go. I mean, I'd never been to a murder trial before, and I just went and sat in the back row, And I had a spot where whenever the door opened on the other side of the courtroom, Ramirez turned around to see who came in, and I got to see his face. And then one time he locked eyes with me, and it was like, oh my God. And that was like, okay, I'm good.
Oh, yeah, and the pentagram on the hand, and in the movie, you got the pentagram on your face.
Yeah, did I? Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. I was creepy.
Yeah, a creepy role for sure. It's just another
Yeah,
one. Did you face any injuries on there? Anything personally that
I
you
just a
saw?
broken rib.
Broken rib?
Yeah, our producer broke her ankle. One of the uh, the stunt doubles broke a couple of ribs. Another one ended up 6 weeks in a hospital because they he hit a it was a ramp stunt with a car and he hit it too hot and like did half a roll too many and landed on the roof. It was funky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the heavy film for sure. Let's take things to the beginning because you have an interesting history with the background of your mother being an English teacher. So, was there something that you were able to learn from her that kind of sparked your way into this world of the arts?
No, what I got from her, as an English teacher was communication skills and how to use the language and a sense of dignity and respect for who you're speaking to. And that's definitely because acting, I guess all the arts are about communication. So she taught me about communication, but I didn't become an actor until I ended up in LA and sort of accidentally wandered into an acting class. So I wasn't I and this was I graduated from high school in 72. There was no internet. There was no I didn't I saw some actors when I went to college for a while and I played trombone in the pit orchestra of Fiddler on the Roof at the University of Montana, and I saw actors for the first time there and realized, oh, those are people. But without an internet and without, we had two channels on TV. You didn't see anything that lets you know that, you could actually do something like that. So it wasn't on my radar at all.
Hmm. Because Fiddler on the Roof was such an inspiration to you, have you considered doing some stage acting? Is that something
Well,
that you
I've done plenty of stage
plenty of?
acting.
Yeah.
I've always, I, because I was taught by a guy who uh, said and taught that you're supposed to constantly challenge yourself. If you ever get to where you think, oh, I got this, you don't. If you ever think you got it, it's like you're in the wrong game, man.
Yeah.
And so and stage acting is like it's a whole other animal. But actually, soap opera acting has a lot in common with stage acting, which is you just gotta let it rip and recognize and know and trust that there you can't if you're really going for it, you can't make a mistake because the other person is just going to go along with you and you're going to adjust to whatever they do and they're going to adjust to what you do and you're going to have an experience with each other. And you know, the difference being on a soap opera, you've got someone in the booth saying, uh, don't do that, but go ahead and do this. And then on stage, you've already gone through all that process, and now it's just you and the words and your partner and the audience. And so it's a lot more on you. And it's a great challenge. I've really had some amazing experiences acting on stage. Well, I don't do musicals, but
Oh, you wouldn't challenge yourself for that.
I thought about it for a minute, but it was like, no, no,
Well,
no.
you did play the trombone, and you were also bass guitarist in the Walking Wounded band. What happened to the band that it just disbanded?
Um, our our guitar player was from the South, and he was a Southern Baptist, and um, he thought he was going to hell for his lifestyle. Um, he probably was, but his brother came out to L.A. and rescued him from us, and the band just sort of fell apart because you know, he was the he was the musician in the band. He was just a brilliant guitar player, just like he'd been playing since he was 5 years old, and he was 18. It was just he really could have been something. And then Jerry Giddens was the singer, and he and I wrote songs together, and but without the I was just I was a pretty mundane bass player. I could keep the time, but that was about it. Um, so it was there was not we didn't have enough to keep going once Joel left.
Yeah. Any important, did you ever meet any kind of important people in the music business during that time? That was something I was wondering when reading. Did you cross paths with anyone? Because it's really two separate worlds into one.
Well, we opened for Phil Oakes one night, and then played with him because he couldn't hold on to his guitar. He'd had a little too much to drink, um, and we there were a lot of clubs that we played at in LA. There was Blackie's and the China Club and what was it, Club 88, something like that. And there was a we recorded at Graham Nash's studio. It was over in Crossroads of the World, this cool old Hollywood kind of a spot on Sunset Boulevard. And we met some creepy producer who, gave us a deal and took all our points. Later on, uh, my ex-wife was recording with Richard Perry, who, did Carly Simon, You're So Vain, and all the Pointer Sister songs, and
Wow.
yeah, and did a lot of stuff, and so that was more like, famous guy, but
Yeah. But the movie roles really started to take off for you. TV V was the first one for like the SAG work. That was the jump off for you for the TV show side of things. But Out of Bounds was the first movie role. So tell me how you were able to land your first role on the big screen.
I knew how to be that guy, I guess. I don't know why I knew how to be that guy, but probably because I just um it was a way to channel all the just whatever was cooking inside that needed to come out. And I was able to channel it at somebody, and I just I auditioned well. Uh, maybe the last time I auditioned well. I don't know. A couple other good auditions along the way, but I I have not I've not been a brilliant auditioner in my career, but that one I was just, I had an acting teacher who was so intense that it was scarier to go take a scene into class than it was to go to any audition. So it was like, oh, this is an audition. I don't care what these guys think. Ed, my teacher, I care what he thinks, and he's not here, so I can just, let it rip.
Oh, yeah, that's insane. It prepares you. I mean, a tough, strict acting teacher prepares you to where you're not going to be timid and scared to go into the room and play a part.
Have you studied acting?
I have. I've studied acting. I got into it recently. I'm looking to get into it more. It's something I've always been interested in, and you kind of just have to be yourself, go in there prepared, and not be timid, even though it is intimidating at times, 100%. But you have to know that you probably won't get the majority auditions that you go on for, but to just don't give up. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish you luck, man.
Yeah. But let's get into more of your work, especially with these classes too. When you were 26, was there anything that you took away as far as techniques with these classes that helped you early on and just even still throughout your career?
Yeah, well, the what I studied was Meisner technique, which is um, not planning anything other than knowing what your intention is in a scene. Like you go into a scene, you need someone to love you, you need them to hate you, you need them to give you money, you need something from them, and then uh, the main idea is all life exists in the other person. So you put not most of your attention, but all of your attention on your acting partner. And when you do that, then you naturally respond to who they are and what they're doing uh, based on what your intention is, and you take your cues from them so that you and then the lines are just tools that you're using to get your intention fulfilled, and so it becomes effortless because you're not self-conscious. You're not having an eye out here watching yourself, and that's the only deadly thing in acting is to watch yourself. If you get past that, then it's a breeze. But you have to
Yeah.
get past it again and again and again and again and again. But the best way to do it is by just making that other person as important as you can make them, and not only that, but give them every opportunity to be as good and as full and as rich as they can be. Because, it's like playing tennis with somebody who's, you know, two classes above you. You raise your game. So if you give everything you have to that other person, then it'll come right back to you and raise your game. So.
Mhm. What's interesting too, because you really put in the work, and there's a lot of actors out there that put in the work, and you come from the era of where it was talent over popularity. And I've even heard you say previously in other interviews that you came from the era where it didn't matter how many Twitter or Instagram followers you have. So do you think that's because I think that's a real issue now, because you see it a lot now where a lot of agents want to know how many followers you have, how many engagements you have. Do you think that auditions are they don't matter as much because now it's more about views and likes and followers? Because to me those numbers can be manipulated. That's why I don't agree with that process. I agree with you have to go off of talent. You can't go off of views and followers.
Well, it's the only thing. I mean, I can't change the way someone hires or doesn't hire me. All I can do is, make sure that I take advantage of the fact that I get to act this week. This is here's a here's a scene or two, a couple of scenes I get to do, and how can I, really make it real for myself, and how can I, leave everything on the table and just know that I gave it my best shot, um, and then, because acting is a really stupid way to make a living. I mean, the percentage of it's like less than, I think, 5% of Screen Actors Guild members make enough to have health insurance. That's just absurd. And that's, and that's, and whatever, that's probably four of those percentage points are people who don't make a living entirely as actors. So the number of people who can actually make a living doing this is vanishingly small. And so you're doing it because you love to act. And so you don't need someone's permission to enjoy yourself when you're doing an audition. You need your own permission. So if this is the only chance you get to act this week, then take advantage of it. That's what I've come down to. And this is not original from me. There's a lot of really successful actors who talk about that.
Yeah, you have to do it because you love it, and that's what's so important. And it's garnered you so much attention. And remember all your performances from the shows, one being Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you got to appear on there twice, which is with Kralik and Rock. That was crazy.
Right.
Yeah, Rock was crazy. That was another role. I feel as though with Rack, that role, it kind of. fits into what he seemed like a meditator to me in some of the scenes, and it kind of connects to where what you would be doing later on with teaching meditation with that
Mm.
role. But how was it working with Sarah Michelle Gellar, especially because you were the test vampire?
She was a gem, man. She was really a professional and really, you know, respectful and open and willing to play. And I loved working with her.
Yeah. Well, now that because I did hear that there's a reboot show in the works and she's involved, maybe you could get a third appearance. You never
Who
know.
knows? What do you know? No, probably not. But yeah, there were only two actors in the whole history of the show that had played multiple characters, it's me and Brian Thompson, and it was because they just, the Joss Whedon was just so he didn't want to mess with his universe. Like, no, that guy was on and he died and he's not coming back. But then I had, the good fortune to have a friend who was a writer on the show, who became a writer on the show after I'd been on it and wrote a role that she wanted me to do. And, however she did it, she convinced them to let me do it. So,
Yeah. Two memorable roles, and I'm hoping for a third. That would be nice if it does happen.
write letters, everyone, write letters.
Yeah.
Hire, tell them to hire Cobra.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, what was funny because you've been working with so many greats for so long. Clint Eastwood, this is one of the heavy hitters in Hollywood. How was it being directed by him? Because he's not your natural director. He does it in his own way. He has his own style.
Uh, Yeah, he was it's an honor to get to work with someone like that, man. And he um we did the scene we did a scene and then he came and he took me by the elbow and said, "Okay, I want you to walk over here, and then you say this, and then you walk over here and you say this." He says, "Look what I'm doing to you." He said, "This is why I became a director, so no one could do this to me." Sorry. And it was just like, come on, it's Clint Eastwood. Do whatever you want to do, man.
And you have a picture with him too. I was reading about online. Do you have this picture with him?
I have a picture that I took of him when I was sitting behind him in a cast chair. And it's striking to me because it's completely behind him. And you look at it and it's Clint Eastwood. That's how iconic he is. He's Clint Eastwood, front, back, sideways. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Were you a fan of the Westerns, the Dirty Harrys? What was kind of the role that
Well, I grew up, we had Westerns on TV all the time, and he was on one called Rawhide.
they had the
He
TV
played
show?
Rowdy Yates, and he was the young, wild uh, cowpoke. And then after that went off the air, then he went over and did those spaghetti Westerns, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all of that. And, where I came from, in the summer, you'd go to the drive-in theater and they'd do Dusk Till Dawn. They'd do five movies, and they were either westerns with Clint Eastwood and uh, and then there were some others with Dean Martin and Telly Savalas, all kinds of different westerns, but a lot of Clint Eastwood or Hell's Angels movies, and you'd watch five of them, and so. Yeah, he was like, you put someone up on a drive-in theater screen. That's bigger than life. That leaves an impression.
Yeah, that's definitely a highlight moment, one that you'll never forget. Do you have like another one that's up there for you with working with someone? I mean, you've worked with so many greats in the industry, Mariska
And I
Hargitay,
always I like to mention Andrew Lincoln from
all Walking Dead. You playing
Walking
Joe.
Dead because he is one of the most gracious, giving actors I've ever worked with, and he really, that show was him, and he was 110% on screen, off screen. There's sometimes you end up having to talk to a piece of tape instead of, because the actor is exhausted and they got to go rest instead of finishing the scene when you're doing your coverage. But man, he was like, he never dropped his accent, he never faded away, and he never complained. And just the scenes that I was doing with him, it was, he he had fake blood and raw chicken in his mouth and had to, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold in Georgia, and he was just he's I've he's more committed than any actor I've ever worked with, and he does it with with joy. So yeah, he left a big impression. Yeah.
Wow. I'm not surprised, especially how long that show went on. He's the face of it. It's just a
Yeah.
really testament to his hard work and dedication to the
Yeah,
craft. And
absolutely.
yeah, and you played a memorable role on there, Joe. I think they should have had more episodes with you on there, but then he
Oh, I
bites your
tried.
throat out.
No, they said you're dead.
Oh,
I, the first day I went there, I sat down with the producers. They wanted to talk to me. I said, "So, what are the chances of this going longer?" They said, "Zero."
oh, no,
But you know what was great about that was they built a character that was interesting enough and and took up enough space that they had to get someone who was uh, bad enough that Rick would give up trying to be a pacifist and would do something to save the life of his son and Michonne, and I got to do that. And so they made a character that it wasn't a throwaway character. It was a fully fledged whole universe of a character. And then I died, so I'd rather do whatever it was, 4 episodes, 5 episodes, and have that kind of a character than do a whole season and not really get to work like that. So
mm. At China Beach, because this is really a testimony, and it was funny reading about it because it reminds me of Michael Jordan when he had the flu game and the food poisoning and all that stuff that went on in the 90s.
ah,
But how did you overcome having the flu and getting this role on China Beach?
well, I I read the script and just I knew I had to do it. And, just that happens just rarely, and that was one time it happened for me. And so I made myself go in, and I could barely talk. My voice was gone, and but it was a Marine who'd been out in the bush for 6 months. So when I got done with the audition, I'm sorry, I'm sorry about my voice, and they said, no, 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 we love it. So, I had to keep the voice even when I got better. So,
And they ended up switching the timelines because it was all about with Vietnam, and then it went to the Civil Wars. What happened that they switched those two?
Civil Wars was a series that replaced China Beach
That's what it. Okay.
when they canceled the show.
That's what happened. So they replaced it, which yeah, no, that's a shame that they canceled it and replaced it with that. Yeah,
No, everyone's trying to find as much success as they can squeeze out of a given time slot. Especially then, it was all network TV, so
yeah.
they thought Marielle Hemingway was gonna make more money than Dana Delaney for whatever reason, or a courtroom drama was gonna, because the LA law was happening then, and who knows? Some room full of guys went, yeah, let's do this, and I'm proud of that show because we did something for the veterans and the nurses and the donut dollies, and we honored these people who had been so ignored, you know, who had gone out and done what they thought was the right thing to do, and fulfilled their duty, and then came back to a country that was just dismissive entirely of what they had given.
Yeah, no, that's a shame. And I was actually having a conversation with someone about that recently, just how the troops were treated when they came home from Vietnam. And is it true that you went there? You visited Vietnam? Is that true?
Yeah, I think in 88, they opened it up for tourism. You couldn't go there directly. You had to fly to Thailand and then go from Thailand in because you couldn't, it was illegal to go from the US to Vietnam. But Vietnam had opened for tourism like literally 30 days prior to when I went over there with Dana Delaney and I, because there was a writer strike and we had some time. And it was like, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to go see, smell, touch this place that you were putting into a show, putting onto a story. It's priceless research.
100%. The show had impact, and I'm glad that it's a piece that you're proud of because it does mean a lot to the people that were a part of that whole war and everything that went on there. You got into acting because you loved it. You still love it because it felt free. Then there was doing it for the approval. You wanted approval of others. When did you learn to get past the approval stage?
Well, you just gotta, have it beat out of you.
Hmm.
Because no one, I don't think anyone gets into acting unless they need approval. Um, but then the minute you get any kind of approval whatsoever, you go like, oh, well, that didn't fix anything. So, and And then you realize you can't really act if you're doing it for approval. It's not real. It loses all of its juice, and there's no freedom in it. So, I learned pretty early on that, that you had to be not only willing not to seek approval, but you had to be willing to uh, actively court disapproval. Just like, it's just, ideally. Um, Ideally, you're letting something drive you other than, the needs of your ego. So, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a, I think every actor has to go through that just to some degree, I would imagine. Because, I mean, who the hell would choose to be an actor unless there was something uh, missing? It's not like, oh yeah, I think I'll go do this thing where the chances of success are very slim and where you have to just be emotionally vulnerable and naked repeatedly and it's a competition too. So uh, it's like it's an absurd thing to do.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But when you're great at it, it definitely boosts the resume for sure. You teach Vedic meditation. This is something that may be different to my audience, but I wanted to get into it. What is the definition of this form of meditation for people that may not know?
Well, Vedic
Vedic
meditation is
meditation.
uh, it's a mantra-based meditation where you use a mantra. The mantra guides you to a place that is beyond your thinking, and you settle into an experience that's more true than your day-to-day experience, and you begin to have connection to, what you really are instead of just being at the mercy of your thoughts and feelings. And you let go of stresses, and you just have an easier time in the world. It really is life changing. It changed my world. It turned my life around.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I ended up teaching it.
And where can people sign up for these classes? Because
So
where
just go
people
to,
going.
jeffcober.com, and then there are other teachers around the country, and if someone wants to write to me, and I can teach them online, or I can direct them to somebody and wherever they find themselves. We have there are teachers in Australia and on the East Coast, in Florida, Mexico, teachers all around.
Yeah. And you're one, this is the guy to go to, everyone. This is the one that you want to take the classes with. But here's an interesting question. How do you avoid tapping into your ego in order to really be your true self?
Meditation is an absolute essential because without the ability to transcend your ego at least one time, you don't know that there's anything you can be other than the ego. That's your thoughts and feelings. But if you transcend the ego one time, then you recognize that you're here and your thoughts and feelings are over here, and you start to realize, oh, I'm not them. That means I don't have to do what they tell me to do, and I don't have to believe that I'm what they tell me I am, and and then you work at building a connection to that deeper experience of what you are. And with acting, you have to, because uh, you can't act from the ego and have it be worthwhile. It's not, it doesn't work. Your ego is going to be there. You need an ego just to, it's like trying to be alive without an ego is like trying to drink a glass of water without a glass. It's not going to go well, but you it's just like the ego is just like any other role that you put on as an actor. But it's the energy of life that's coming through that role that it matters. It's not what color the eyes are or what opinions it has, or it's the energy of life, and that's coming through this role or this ego, with a slightly different flavor than through this other ego, which is what makes it interesting to be alive.
What would you say is the best way to really be here in the moment during these current times with social media, people comparing themselves to others that they see online? What is the best way to really kind of stay focused and not get caught up on that? Is it because it may be hard for someone to just say, let me turn off the phone and just step away from it? I feel as though you're going to have thoughts. And what's the way to get rid of those thoughts and to really just stay focused?
Find a meditation practice, and then you know challenge yourself to put the phone down
Mm.
at least once in a while, because just in simple uh, terms of brain chemistry, what we're doing with these little devices is we're taking dopamine hits. The thing dings and it's like, oh, my life maybe changed. No, it didn't. Oh my God, look at that. That I can't believe she did that. Oh my God, really? And then you're over there, and I'm no longer having a real experience with anybody. I'm having an experience with myself and dopamine, and that's not a bad thing, but if I spend all of my time just getting dopamine hits, I never build the structure of living that allows me to, you know, dig into the serotonin and just the experience of the joy of living or satisfaction that you can get from, you know, challenging yourself and going through something and coming out the other side. Yeah, you can spend your whole life just taking dopamine hits, and and then just putting down whatever it is oh, that guy, I could have done that. Oh, that guy sucks. Oh, who do you think you are? You can sit on the sidelines and have all kinds of opinions about stuff, but it doesn't do anything. It's not, we're here to have an experience. We're not here to avoid discomfort. And if I'm just on my phone, I'm just avoiding discomfort. And that's one of the shocking things to me, is that when I started insisting on getting present, it's uncomfortable. You spend decades avoiding the moment, and then you try to get in the moment. It's like, God damn, no wonder I was avoiding this. It's uncomfortable. But then that discomfort that you're feeling, that's the vulnerability, the willingness to feel life, that allows you then to be an actor, or to fall in love, or to be a good parent, to succeed at your work. You've got to be connected and committed and present. Have your attention where your feet are. and think about walking if you're walking, and put your attention on the other person if you're having a conversation with the other person rather than on what you're going to say as soon as they stop talking. You know, it's you have to you just have to it's practice. Meditation is a practice, and it's my meditation. I teach people to meditate for 20 minutes twice a day, and then I say, and now the other whatever 16, 18 hours of waking time that you have during the day, practice being somewhere other than in your thinking. And if you can find yourself out of your thinking twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, that's a good day. Then you build up to where you can, do it more and do it more and do it more to where the thinking is there and can help you out, but it's not, you don't make the mistake of identifying with your thinking. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who does this, but if you walk across a bridge, you look down, I think, what would it be like to jump?
Yeah.
Every time, and I'm not suicidal, but I think about that. Now, if I'm my thinking, I better see a doctor and get that shit taken care of, or I might just jump one day. But I'm not that's just like random, you know, it's just the intellect throwing spaghetti against the wall to see which ones stick. I don't know, you could jump. I don't know, you could call your friend. I don't know, you could have a burger. It's just making guesses, and you're gonna grab one of them and say, "Yeah, that's who I am. I'm a burger guy." No.
It is crazy. It just everyone just glued to their phones wherever you see someone walking somewhere, groups of people, everyone just glued to their phones. Kids are now growing up with the screen in their face,
Yeah.
it's put in their hands as a toddler. And I think what's shocking too is when you go to concerts, everyone has their phone. No one's truly watching the they're watching it through their phone, which is insane.
You're reducing an entire universe to a 3-inch screen. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And I commend you for having these meditation courses because I think we really need more of that. And now mental health issues, they're really mainstream because there was a time to where they weren't spoken about and people kind of had to suffer in silence. And now they become mainstream to where we can turn to avenues such as yourself.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the consciousness, your consciousness determines your experience of your world. Is it easier to have a pleasant experience with more money and enough food and feelings of safety? Absolutely. And it still depends on your consciousness. Bud Powell, come on, dude. My dog.
Uh,
Um, it's your consciousness that determines your experience of each other and of the world. So if you want to change your world, you got to change your consciousness. And, just expect something pleasant to happen. Expect something to go well. Expect someone to be happy to see you. Be surprised if they don't seem happy to see you. Hey, you okay? Because chances are they're having a bad day and they didn't even notice you walk into the room. It's not that they're disappointed to see you. It's like, and then you ask them how they're doing, then suddenly compassion happens and you've just changed someone's world, and that's when you change your own world. Because if I uplift your world, then I'm the one that gets to reap the benefits of that. Because that's what we're here for, is just to help each other out. And meditation gets you in that ball game because you get free of the demands of do it this way and do it that way and get enough of this and get enough of that, and figure out how to get more followers and blah blah blah.
Yeah, lots of blah blah blah. I'll tell you. Do you use painting as a form of meditation? Because you had to learn how to paint for the Kindred role.
I no I take uh I'm a photographer. I
Mhm.
do that, and I'm a writer, and it's and it's I guess it's all. everything can be a meditation, but what it really is you're giving yourself an opportunity to be fully present to something and fully attentive. You know, you mentioned Michael Jordan. When he's, in flow or in the zone, the basket looks like it's 3 feet across and he can't miss it. And it's because he is entirely present to the flow of the moment. And he's not worrying about or thinking about anything. He's just there's him, the ball, and there's the basket, and these other people who might get in my way, but I don't care because I'm going to the basket, and you can anything that interests you, I suppose I'm maybe not anything, but every one of us can find something that we enjoy enough to really commit to trying to be fully present with it, and give ourselves fully to it so that we can have those moments of just freedom from, the bondage of self. So
Yeah. Harmonica, that's something you take lessons with. What drew you to the harmonica?
yeah, I'm a bad musician, and it's it's a way to to try to get better at something.
Mm.
I'm I'm not gonna be recording any albums anytime soon. Uh, but if I can get through a couple songs, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, you got some experience, the trombone, the bass guitar. You got some experience with instruments. So I wouldn't say that you're the worst person out there, but you got some experience.
I've got some experience, yeah, and as a musician, I make a great actor.
Yeah. Embracing bliss. I wanted to get into your books because you are a writer. That's one of your forms of meditation. What drew you to write a book about the found passion?
It's just we meditate in order to be able to shift our habitual way of being in the world. It's meditation uh, opens you up to trying something different or trying, to being some different way than you usually are. And then you've got to have like a suggestion as to, well, how would I do it differently? And so I just started writing these little pieces like, well, look at it this way, because the fact is we really don't have problems. We have opportunities. And I used to hate it when people said that, but it really is. There's no such thing as a problem-free life. Whenever we fall into this habit of like thinking, as soon as I get this taken care of, then I'm going to be okay. But as soon as that gets taken care of, there's something else that's in the way of okay. And the fact is, there's always going to be something different than the way you think it should be. And if you call that a problem, you're going to put off being happy until that problem is solved. If you call that a challenge, well, how can I see this differently? Now you're engaged with it and you have an opportunity to bring yourself to the equation rather than be at the mercy of the world. And we're here not to be at the mercy of the world. We're here to be expressions of what we are. And so, I just started writing little things and sending it out to my students and said, well, think about it this way, and I've been writing them for a bunch of years and there were enough to put in a book, so I put them in a book.
And congratulations on that. And
Oh,
it's definitely
thanks.
helped out a lot of people, of course. And now you have I was hearing about the sequel that you have, The End of the Pain Factory. So what's the update with this book, the second one?
I'm working on it. This is my little corner. I write every day now that I'm dead on General Hospital. So I have plenty of time to write.
Yeah, and a lot of great, I think a lot of great things have ever since I mean, a lot of great things were happening before to you with the roles that you were getting, but you were getting movie roles right away with these acting, with all these meditation classes going on. And then your agent texted you with the opportunity for General Hospital during one of your classes. And that eventually led to your Emmy.
My manager just said they were they she just they had someone had put my name up and said, would he be interested? And I just, I had nothing going on, so I said sure. And then that, yeah, it was a hoot.
Yeah.
It
You
was
got
so
the,
much fun.
yeah, it landed you the opportunities with all with the meditation. Great things came with that, and you have the books that are that one that's out, one that's on the way, and it's been a real journey for you. What's something that you do want to accomplish, or a role that you want to play? What's something else that you want to accomplish? Is there any goals that you have that you still haven't really attained that you want to?
Hmm. Yeah, I want to learn how to play harmonica.
And you're taking the
And I want to
lessons.
finish this book,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just I want my dog to keep loving me, and I just want to keep getting better at the things that I do. That's you know that's kind of why you got a body, is to just keep showing up until you don't have one any longer, and you're showing up not to avoid but to engage. So I'm just going to keep engaging.
That's the main thing. I wanted to touch on your stunt work too, because Tom Morga was your stuntman for. I think there was a brief period there back in the day, and that
Well,
you worked with
he was in the first Power.
First
He was the
Power.
guy in the first Power. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I
because
worked with him one other time, but I can't remember what that job was.
I wanted to touch on how stuntmen work in this industry because it's interesting because you'll learn about Kurt Russell having a stunt double for 30 years. Does it really kind of just depend on the person? Does it just, are you assigned one just for a particular project or they
Just
follow you around?
you have a stunt coordinator, and he hires guys that he knows that can do the things that you need to do and that can pass for you, if with a wig, or who's the right height, and uh and Tom was available, and he actually, I had like seven stunt doubles on the first Power, but Tom was the main guy. It was just there were a couple of scenes that required several different people looking like me. But yeah, Tom was a master, man. He made me look good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of horror background there. Yeah,
He's a talent, and he he just mimics the way you move and makes sure his face stays out of the camera, and yeah, and he's a sweet guy, so it was a win all the way around with him.
absolutely. Yeah. I remember reading about it that you were learning how to act again. What was the reason for that? This was a couple years ago that I read
Oh, just
online.
because just it's like I don't know. Tiger Woods reinvented his golf swing a couple of times because he got tired of the way it was going, and he just you I, I think any life that's well lived, you got to blow it up every once in a while and just see which pieces fall down next to you and which ones go away. And so that was just another version of that. Like, let me pretend I don't know anything about how to do this, and let me start from scratch. And
Yeah.
and so that movie that I did that on is called Grassland, and it's available for uh, uh, streaming as of April 11th, and everyone should buy it on Apple because we're trying to get uh, 5,000 streams because they all drop on one day. If you pre-buy it, then they count on that one day, and if you get a certain number, then you end up in the algorithm, and then people will watch it. And so Grassland, go
Yeah, make
rent it.
sure you go download that.
Yeah.
Everyone that's listening, make sure you go watch that and get the streams up, because that's the new industry now. You got to get the streams up. It's not going to the movies, getting to these festivals. I mean, that's still a thing, but now you got to play the game
Yeah.
of streaming.
Well, hey man, great talking to you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on the show, Jeff. I had a great time speaking with you. It was an amazing delight, and I want to thank you to Lisa too for getting this set up, for having this
Yeah,
conversation here tonight.
she's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she definitely
Hey,
is.
yeah, she's one of the good ones. We've been together a long time.
Yeah,
So thank you, man.
yeah.
I appreciate you doing all the research and for asking good questions. And I wish you well, man.
Thank you. Anytime if you ever want to come back on the show, you always have an open seat. Anytime you got new material to promote, I'm looking forward to this new book too.
Uh, Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Of course, Jeff. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your night. All right.
Okay, you too.
Yeah. Bye
Bye.
bye.